done one stand-up comedy performance, so... So, as we've said, I'm Ruth. I am currently Communications and Development Manager at Lighthouse, and I'm also on the board for the Digital Festival. Those of you that's been here before, you might recognise me. I'm usually helping to sign people in on the door or occasionally behind the bar when we're at a different venue. So it's very nice to be here tonight. So I'm going to tell you how art college, a Michelin-star restaurant, studying philosophy, all led to working in digital marketing and then on to my current role at Lighthouse. So, for those of you that don't know, Lighthouse is an arts charity. We're based in the North Lane. You probably walked past this building a million times, even if you didn't know we were there. This is the great team that I work with at the moment. So the organisation's actually been exhibiting, commissioning and supporting the work of artists in Brighton and across the world for the past 30 years. Do a really broad range of projects from mentorship schemes like Guiding Lights in the film industry. We have a project called Viral, which is working with young people in Brighton to help them get into the creative industries, through to international art commissions like the Wavy Pot, which premiered at the Brighton Festival back in May, where 4 artists did a performance based on their explorations of the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. So it's a pretty exciting place to be. We're based in the North Lane, where we've got space for lots of other creative companies and kind of meeting rooms to hire and things. So it's a nice, busy spot. So my work with the Brighton Digital Festival, for those of you who don't know, hopefully you will do, this is an event as part of it. It's 4 weeks of the year, but I think that its presence is felt hopefully throughout the year. It's a kind of real moment where the digital and creative industries in the city come together. And I think hopefully as everyone in this room knows, those two kind of industries and the combined force of them has a huge impact on Brighton, so it's great to be able to celebrate it. As Rifa mentioned, before I was at Lighthouse, which I've only been there for about 5 months, I was at digital agency Brilliant Noise for 5 years. So Brilliant Noise works with brands, this is the team at Brilliant Noise, works with big global brands to help them improve their kind of marketing operations and output, to deal with the world we live in today, where customers are connected to each other and to the organisations that they're buying from, and kind of working with like never before. So, to me, Brilliant Noise and Lighthouse have a big thing in common. They're both kind of helping people deal with the internet and the kind of world as we know it, and that's affected by so much technology. And that's, really what interests me about both organisations. So now for the going back in time to Rifa wanted the Wales to be mentioned. So I was born in Aberystwyth, where everybody dresses like this all of the time. And so I was born there and then moved around a lot as a child, but grew up mostly in a town in England, but only just over the border from North Wales, called Oswestry. This is where I spent a lot of my teenage years. So at school, I did always enjoy both academic and creative subjects. I never particularly had a specific career path in mind. I did have a brief flirtation with the idea of drama school. And then after a year travelling in New Zealand, funnily enough, when I was 18, I came back home to do an art foundation before going up to Edinburgh College of Art to study photography. So, unsurprisingly, I had a great time at art college. You just get to do what you want all day, every day, and make fantastic work and hang out with lots of great friends. Go to way too many fancy dress parties. I'm over them. Never want to go to another one. But after graduation, it was a strange time. I think the college was rubbish at addressing what happens after you graduate, how you might pay your rent, things like that. I don't think any of us really expected anything different, but looking back, I think we probably should have done. So I'd always worked since I was 16, so I wasn't particularly worried about whether or not I'd find a job. I was kind of confident that that would be okay. But leaving college was a strange and sad time for everybody. This is taken on the day I was moving out of my student flat. So, as I said, I'd always worked alongside my studies, mostly in restaurants. So, like this one in New Zealand and this one in Edinburgh. And whilst being at the restaurant side, learned a lot about wine as well. So, this is me squishing some wine skins down into a big vat of soon-to-be wine in New Zealand. And then from that, I also started working in wine shops. So, as a lot of you probably know, working in hospitality can be really enjoyable, but it's also really tough. I worked super long hours, often for really rubbish money. But I did learn how to be resilient, how to prioritise in a really busy work environment, and the importance of the customer. And this is just an aside, but I think I might write a book about what brand marketers can learn from hospitality, because when I first joined Brilliant Noise, I was totally new to the industry, and we were having lots of meetings with sort of senior clients who seemed to not be able to get their head around this idea of customer experience. And I was sitting there like, guys, it's the experience of the customer, just think about them. And it's really just baffled me, and I'm interested in what those two worlds can learn from each other. So when I first graduated from Edinburgh College of Art, I was pretty confident that I was employable. I'd never particularly aspired to be a professional photographer, but I was confident that I'd find work in a related field. But I applied for lots and lots and lots of jobs, and barely got an interview, didn't get any of them. I did eventually get an unpaid internship at a photography gallery in Edinburgh called Stills. This is the team that I work with there. They're all amazing. And then another unpaid internship at the office of a photo blogging website. So that was great. I met lots of great people, got to talk about photography and art all day. But I also worked full-time in a restaurant, as well as working 3 or 4 days a week unpaid in these places. Just so I could afford my rent and to live. So the restaurant that I worked during this time was called 21212. It has a Michelin star. I figured if I was going to still be working in restaurants, it may as well be the best restaurants. It's a very, very beautiful place. So I worked really closely with the owners here, Katie and Paul, and that's the sous chef, Kate. They are so, so driven and super, super creative, and have the highest standards of anyone I've ever met. If you want to learn something about kind of attention to detail and quality, then I would go and spend some time in a restaurant that's working to that level. It's bonkers. And so the food at 21212 is amazing, super delicious, but a bit different and a bit out there sometimes. An example of one of the dishes is beef with pork pie sauce and a wild mushroom meringue. So we would kind of occasionally get customers who hadn't done their research, just kind of saw the fact it had a Michelin star, saw how expensive it was, and thought, right, that's it, that's going to be a classic fine dining experience. And they wouldn't like it. But what I learned from these guys is that if you have confidence in what you're doing, just do it really well. And some people aren't going to like it, and that's fine. So that was a really interesting lesson. I think, watching Katie go out to a table that were complaining and just being like, sorry you didn't like it, was, that stuck with me. They're, very inspirational people. So then I moved to Brighton, lovely, windy Brighton. And when I got here, I started looking for jobs, and I thought, wow, there's all of these creative digital companies in Brighton. I'm definitely going to be able to get a job here. So obviously signed up for the Wired Sussex jobs alerts. I applied for lots of jobs. I did have a couple of interviews, but I didn't get any of them. And then I was starting to sort of get a bit disconcerting. I had a degree, I'd always got good grades, I had 10 years of work experience in hospitality and retail, which I really saw the value in to these jobs that I was applying for that were kind of office manager, PA type roles. At 21212, a lot of my job had been kind of receptionist, PA, so obviously bigged up that admin side of things on my CV, but still I wasn't getting any of these jobs. Alongside all those applications, I'd also applied to do an MA in Cultural and Critical Theory here at the University of Brighton. So when the job hunt went badly, I was super excited to be accepted onto that course. So MAs are pretty full on, as we just heard. it really felt like learning how to read again, or at least to sort of a level that I'd never done before. I went into it thinking, there was a theory part of my photography undergraduate, it'll just kind of be like that. It was actually a sort of 12-month crash course in modern philosophy. So, yeah, it was pretty full on, really super interesting. I learned to have a much greater appreciation of the kind of fragility of the world around us and how society is only the way it is because of decisions people have made and kind of because of what's come before, and we can change it. It doesn't need to be like this. Seems unrelated, but that was very useful a few years later at Brilliant Noise when I was organising events and writing copy around kind of digital transformation, organisational change. It's a lot of the same ideas. So it was also super useful for kind of researching and writing skills. This was the view from the classroom that we mostly had our lectures in, so it was quite distracting, especially when the sun was setting, and it's probably why I'm now a card-carrying pavilion member and tea room fanatic. So those of you that know me will know that's, if you're meeting me for lunch, that's where we go. It's like my own private members club. So, towards the end of the MA, I applied for a community management role at Brilliant Noise. So in my application, I had to send a variety of writing examples to demonstrate sort of different tones of voice. So I sent a review of a hat-making workshop, a blog post I'd written for the PhotoWorks biennial, actually working with Natalie, who's here tonight, and a 5,000-word term paper on Simone de Beauvoir. So I was surprised to get an interview. I hadn't really held out much hope with that application. But it was only later that I found out that, this is where I worked. I skipped this. While I was doing my MA, I worked at a cafe in Hove, OVS, to pay the rent. That's it. So, Maddie there and Beth were the people reviewing my application, now both really good friends. And the existentialist, feminist, way over long, ridiculous thing to attach to a job application really appealed to Beth, or Mega Beth, as she's known, if you can see by necklace. And Maddie, who's one of the founders of Brilliant Noise, she thought, well, surely we want our clients to have a Michelin star experience working with us. So she was kind of interested in that as the link. And because of my hospitality experience, that first role at Brilliant Noise actually ended up being kind of part community management, so answering Facebook and Twitter for clients, and part office management. So I was the first office manager that they'd had. And those first few months were all while still writing up my MA dissertation. I think that if Maddie hadn't made the link between hospitality, customer experience, and the kind of aspirations of the agency, the link that I'd been confident in all along and why I'd been applying for these jobs, then I don't think I would have got that interview and, probably wouldn't be here talking to you today. Brilliant Noise is a brilliant company. This is a vintage photo from not long after I joined. As my first office job, it really set the bar high for environment, culture, work ethic, and a team of really, really nice, really clever people who really all cared about what they did, which I've kind of come to learn over the years isn't the case in every workplace. So I learned a huge amount there. I threw myself into learning about this new world of agencies, which took me a few months to even work out what an agency was. I kept sort of saying, well, why aren't these companies just doing this stuff for themselves? Wouldn't that be much cheaper? And yeah, still not really sure what the answer is. So I read lots of books, went to lots of conferences, sat in on meetings and workshops. I could write, so it turned out I could produce content, which was useful. And events were second nature to me after so many years in hospitality. I worked closely with Maddie and the other founders and was super lucky to have lots of experienced, generous colleagues to learn from. Some of them are here tonight. So as well as doing lots of amazing work for really exciting clients, we also had quite a lot of fun while I was at Brilliant Noise. So I've got a little bit of a, if to indulge me, mini slideshow of some fun times at Brilliant Noise. So this is an Easter bonnet making competition that we once had. Refers particularly. I'm surprised you didn't take the slide out actually when I sent them over to you. Lots of nice days out, walks in the downs with wine, which is the dream. Lots of cheese. Yeah, just hanging out in beautiful places. More walks. We went up the I-360 for a party, which was pretty fun. And just generally spending quite a lot of quality time together. So a big part of my time at Brilliant Noise was the conference that we ran, a one-day conference called DOTS. So what started off as an idea from Anthony, the CEO, that we should do our own digital festival event, and that he'd find someone to find the speakers, and could I just like get a venue and do the rest of it? Went from being 100 people in Screen 1 at Duke's Comedia to last year and the fourth year being 300 people in the Dome Concert Hall. So I actually think it was a bonus that I'd barely been to any business events before I was asked to organise one, because I didn't know what they were supposed to be like. I didn't know that they were supposed to be a bit rubbish. I just knew how to make sure people felt looked after and had a nice time. So I think that being an outsider in industry is quite often quite useful. So I went from just finding the venue and stuff to co-curating with Neil Perkin, and last year curating the whole lineup as well as producing the event. And this is me interviewing Gemma Kearney on stage at the Dome, where ABBA won Eurovision, people, about her book. So people actually pretend that organising conferences is hard, like Ruth, but really it's just an excuse to invite people that you like to come and hang out with you, isn't it? So I had a great time at Brilliant Noise. The company and my work there took up almost all of my energy and attention for 5 years. I was really fully immersed in the organisation. So when I saw the role advertised at Lighthouse, it suddenly made sense to apply. My experience at Brilliant Noise plus Digital Festival meant that I had sort of fresh skills for the organisation, but also a decent amount of understanding around non-profits and sponsorship and partnerships and things like that. After all of the unsuccessful job applications as a recent arts graduate, I hadn't given much thought to the arts sector, but my experience in a totally different industry ended up leading me to this really interesting role that I'm doing now. So my ambitions at Lighthouse, still sort of all new and enthusiastic, is to connect the organisation even more with the enthusiasm, curiosity and drive of the digital business community. We're often looking at the same problems from complementary perspectives. We can help support and bolster each other's work, and not just through sponsorship, but if you do want to talk to me about that, do grab me afterwards. So another change is that I'm now working 4 days a week. As I said, when I was at Brilliant Noise, that was like all I was doing. I was really, really immersed. I spent a lot of kind of mental energy on learning about that job. And now working 4 days and prioritising my own learning and thinking outside of work. I basically have a sort of reading day at the moment, and I'm thinking about what new projects I can do for myself. So I've now got top 5 tips, things that I've learned along the way that might be useful, maybe, for some of you. So I've always just done what interests me at the time. I've never had a career plan, still don't really have one, but kind of doing the thing that really interests me at the time to the best of my ability, sort of leads to the next thing, I find. If you're working with people who are also interested in what they're doing, it makes a big difference. I think it's really infectious. It makes for a much nicer work environment. As you've heard, I've done quite a bunch of different things. So, don't worry about your CV being a bit kind of all over the place. I think it leads to some of the most interesting jobs and definitely the most interesting people. It's good to be an outsider sometimes. I mentioned with the conference, it was, I think, hugely beneficial that I kind of wasn't from that world. I think where things are changing so quickly now in business, often the person with 20 years experience can't see the solution that someone coming in with fresh eyes from a different perspective can. And yeah, I'm quite into 4 days a week, guys. It's pretty good. I think I've had lots of conversations with people since, like when I've told them that my new role is 4 days, who've said, "Oh, I'm so jealous, I wish I could do that." And I kind of look at them quite often and I think, like you probably can. Like, I think, we're so driven by kind of money and status and feeling like we need to work 1 million hours a week to get anywhere. And I think, just taking a moment to think about whether, like, what else is important to you other than your day job, and what you might want to be doing with your energy as well in your life. And I think doing those other things, whether it's other projects or just spending time with friends and family, probably will make you a better employee or boss. Something to think about.